Namaste. We just talk about the role of mind because very often we make the mistake of thinking that there is matter and there is spirit. But there is something which is meant to mediate between matter and the spirit, especially in human beings, and that is the mind. So, mind is regarded as a mediator divinity and it has a role to play. But unfortunately, we put it on a role which is not meant for the mind and thereby deny it its true office. So, what is the role that we give to the mind which is not meant for the mind? Mind, if we go back to the origin, it's a power of the Lord which divides things in its cosmic mind. There's a cosmic mind. It gives a seeming of the finiteness in the infinite. And I'll give an example. Very simple example, countless examples. This is a book. It's a complete book, isn't it? The entire thing. But how does the mind operate? Mind will read one line, one word, one sentence. Like that it will read. Because mental intelligence works like that. But there is a way you can get the entire essence of the book without going through it. The classic example is when somebody translated the Sri Aurobindo's Life Divine in Bengali. And when that was brought to Sri Aurobindo, Sri Aurobindo did not read or anything. It was not a verbal translation. He just took it in his hand and he said, send it to the press. He knew the entire truth about the whole thing. So there is if we liberate our intelligence from the crammed up, narrow mental faculty, then there is a way that we can know things in totality. But it is no more the mental intelligence. Mind's intelligence operates by limiting things. We see a section, then we sum up in our own life. Where is the common thread? We see this was the childhood, this was the adulthood, this is old age, and then you see a series of circumstances, situation, events. So sometimes we miss the common thread, but if you look behind, you will see a common thread running through life. It's very fascinating to catch it. But nevertheless, the mental intelligence which is used in man to gain knowledge, you cannot get knowledge by the mind. You can organize the knowledge which is received. It comes from the higher realms. The mind can organize it. And everywhere the mind has the same action. How does the atom know? Its own laws, which we today say. Newton's laws. Newton didn't make those laws. Those laws are operating in the solid world. There are laws that operate in the quantum world. There are laws that operate within the atom. The atom didn't come together and say, let's act according to this law. But it acts according to an intelligence which is within the atom and operates, giving to the atoms a certain kind of form, a certain kind of limits. Imagine if there was no law operating within the atom, there would be no world. Particles are picked up randomly and woven into a kind of structure, and now the atom follows it faithfully without being conscious. Similarly, in the plants, intelligence operates within a certain limit to organize the same knowledge, the same truth. That original knowledge which goes into creation is called as Pragya Prashruto Purano, the wisdom that operates in creation. It's an intuitive wisdom, meaning thereby it has a comprehensive global vision of everything. It sees everything in one sweep. That's how it operates. So that's why we are able to maintain the balance between one species and another. Imagine if that balance was not there in nature. We may use the word food chain, this chain, that chain. But imagine what an intelligence that while it is operating in the snake, it is also operating in the rat. It is also operating in the eagle. It's also operating in the fish, in the tiger, the deer, all of them together to create a kind of balance in the cosmos. If you look at it, it's amazing, mind-boggling. Plants, how do they really grow and yet allow others to grow, feed upon others, give something to the world? It's amazing that intelligence operates, but in each species it limits itself. So knowledge is inbuilt within creation, but the mind's task is to operate. That knowledge is the spirit, the wisdom, Pragya Prashruto Purano, Pragya. But it operates through the mind has to organize it. Okay, within it, this limit. That's all. But everything is there. Imagine in the atom, if you split it open, you can discover the knowledge and the power that can blow up the world. And it's there in everything. Then in animal creation, again it operates as instinct. Somehow the instinct operates with such a perfection that our mind cannot. What is instinct? It's again an inbuilt knowledge. But this knowledge operates within the limit of the species. Helpful for it. So what does the mind do? Mind again receives this intelligence and organizes it in a way that it is required for the species. So when we come to man, the task of mind is to organize the knowledge that is already within us, and then to use it to build up or formulate all our physical being, our different parts of our nature. So the mind cannot know unless it opens towards that knowledge. But the mind can give an order and form to the knowledge it receives. When the mind tries to know, then what happens? It enters into an endless maze, very complex web, where at the end it says it's mind boggling. Literally, the word is mind blowing, mind boggling, because the mind is unable to, if it tries to catch this thread, it loses this one and it cannot. So after some time it says, I cannot know. That's the highest that the mind can reach in terms of knowledge. When the mind says, I cannot know, that means it has known what it could know. Then the mind can open to a light above and receive a knowledge, and then it can use this to direct it wherever it wants. So this is the function of the mind. So in human beings, again, this awakening of intelligence takes place through series. So often we use the word, no, very intelligent. Whom do we use the word intelligent? Who gets very good marks, isn't it? This is the most unintelligent way to understand intelligence, devised by some people to declare that we are the only intelligent people and all others are not. By the way, actually it happened. The intelligence IQ tests were devised like that. It was to create a racial discrimination. Simon Binet test. We all know it. To prove that the races, Western races, which have dominated over certain countries, they are right in doing so because they are dominant. They are more intelligent. So they will make things better. So tests were designed in which there were hidden questions. The very fact they are in English. Many of our village people will not be able to take that test at all. So this is how the intelligence within man, there are several ways it operates. There is an intelligence which is purely mechanical. Have you noticed the man who picks up a tool and just knows it and does it? You think he's not intelligent? You know that famous story of somebody who, when story goes by Einstein's name, I'm not sure whether it's true or not, but it gets the point. It also goes in Aldous Huxley's name. That he went to a car mechanic and the car mechanic said, oh, you are the famous one. Yeah, you are the philosopher, the scientist and all. Yeah, you can recognize me by my hairs. So the man says, okay, I have a question for you. So while he was repairing the whole thing, he says, tell me, a dumb man, if he has to ask for a scissor, how would he ask? So he said he'll point like this, scissor. He says, and a deaf man? So he again thinks and says, he'll make the same gesture. So he says, fool, he can speak. He's only deaf, he's not dumb. This is there are many such posers, where the mind, but there is a mechanical intelligence. I have seen it operates so wonderfully. And a very intelligent person will not be able to, do that. But it's a mechanical intelligence. Then there is an intelligence which is called as a business intelligence. Some people have it. They know when is the right time to invest in something, pick up something, and it operates wonderfully for them. They are there at the right time with the things. Then there is an intelligence which is called as emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence doesn't look for short-term gains. It looks for long-term issues. So all this caring, learning to wait. So one example of emotional intelligence is that if you are given two dishes, one is your favorite dish and the other is the one which you don't like. And you have to finish both because a guest has called you, you can't put it up and throw it like children in the dustbin. Which one will you eat first? The one you don't like. Good. That's what is emotional intelligence. That it knows how to wait to take delight in what is going to come. It knows that. But there are a lot of people, this is very nice, and we'll finish it. Have you noticed? So this is an example given of emotional intelligence. It knows how to wait, to enjoy the fruits. It is not something deep spiritual, but it knows how to wait. So, it is called as, there are people who have emotional intelligence. They invest in care. There are other kinds of people who will say, nobody loves me, nobody loves me. And they'll come and tell you. So ask them, by the way, whom do you love? But there are others who invest in love. How do they invest in love? They care, they give, and all this. So when they care and they give, what are they doing? Two things. One is that the love that they are putting today, that is what will come back to you. Now from where? Maybe from that person, not necessarily. But it has gone into the large bank of creation and it will come back in its own way. It will come rushing from every side. And the second is, the minimum that will happen when you do that is, you will increase in yourself the force and energy of love by doing this. Because you are learning to love. So you increase that power. And when that power increases, it has a tremendous energy. This is the one which will shoot towards the divine. So some people think, we love God. Sri Aurobindo says, no, you don't love man. And you talk about loving God, because the energy is not there, the power is not there. When you have never exercised something, how will the energy come? So it's like an exercise. So emotionally intelligent people understand it spontaneously. Then there is another kind of intelligence going up, that is the military intelligence, strategic intelligence. It's a very different kind. How to strategize things. You see what happened in the Galwan Valley. Everybody was wondering, what will Modi ji do? What will the military do? What will Ajit Doval do? You know what they did? While they were engaging them with the talks, knowing fully well that the Chinese are not going to budge, they were quietly occupying heights in mountains which were even more, advantageous. That strategy worked. Because suddenly people realized that they are now there. And the moment they said, you move back, so you could bargain that, no, you... Now, when this military intelligence is lacking, then you make such things as a Himalayan blunder that take away Tibet, not a blade of grass grows in that soil. This was the lack of military intelligence. Same thing you see in Bangladesh war. With very few soldiers, how did India win the battle? There were 93,000 people inside who surrendered. There was an impression which was created that you have no choice but to give up. This was a strategy which Shivaji used to great advantage. With few men in military, in his army, what he would do is he would circle them in such a way that the person thought that we are gone and done for. And they would occupying strategic places. This is called the strategist intelligence. Chanakya was full of a strategic intelligence. But it's a different kind of intelligence. Chanakya may not have understood the life divine, but he would fight a war very well. Then there is another intelligence which operates towards understanding systems of knowledge. The philosopher's intelligence, the scientist's intelligence, it studies objects, tries to link up through the rational mind different kinds of observation. It's another kind of intelligence. What this intelligence does, it observes things, takes up the data, raw data, analyzes it by the mind and arrives at some kind of a theoretical conclusions. That's how the rational intelligence operates. But all these are limited and bound intelligence. If you want to make the intelligence still free, it goes into domains which are called as creative intelligence, where there are outbursts of creative insights. What is today called as a lateral thinking. One condition for that is that don't be too much mesmerized by everything that comes is true. If you start accepting it, your intelligence will never become free. So always stay quiet and suddenly you will see an insight popping up. That's called a lateral intelligence. All the great innovations have been done by people who have used this lateral intelligence. It's generally inborn. The capacity to see what others cannot see, though it is staring in the face. I can give you a number of examples. Recently, somebody died at 83 of COVID, okay? So first the tweet circulated that he died of COVID. And they drew their own conclusions. See, the vaccines were given, and in spite of 2 vaccines, he died the moment he landed in India. Conclusion, it's a different strain in India, so the vaccines are not effective. Valid. The second person retweeted. No, actually he was 83-year-old. He was having diabetes, heart disease, and he died of myocardial infarction, possibly COVID-related complication. That is also valid. Do you think there is a point which is being missed here? So when I was reading this, I said it also means that a lot of data of COVID deaths are untrue. Exactly the same thing is happening. Which means the entire figures collapse. It is there staring, the same data is staring in your face. But you don't look at it like that. So there is an intelligence which has the ability to creatively look at the same thing and see it very differently. Like Kalidas, and these are people who are great poets, creators, like Kalidas story, no? Shushka vraksha tishtati agre, nirasa taru arvilasati purata. So it is the same. Its ability to see something, and all great artists have it. A painter who paints a truth which is hidden behind. Now this intelligence begins to enter into the truth of things which is hidden behind. Great musicians, they receive from a kind of rhythms which are not accessible ordinarily. So it's a creative intelligence which is higher than the rational intelligence. But this is also not the summit. And all these can create a man of genius when you just work in one direction. Beyond it is the spiritual and psychic intelligence. So what is the psychic intelligence? Very simple. All these are complicated things. Psychic intelligence says, but there is nothing else but God. You ask it how? It knows it. It has its own kind of knowledge. Sri Aurobindo says the psychic always has faith because it knows the Divine Mother. When it stands before the Divine Mother, it does pranam, says Ma. You say, how do you prove that she is mother? The psychic will say, I know it. It's a totally different kind of knowledge, which is not accessible to the rational mind. And then there is a spiritual intelligence which knows there is beyond the mind vistas. And this spiritual intelligence starts awakening when faculties of inspiration, revelation, illumination, they start dawning upon man. So we are out of the zone of the rational intelligence, and ultimately we enter into the intuitive intelligence. That's the maximum that human beings can have. Intuition. Wherein the intuition is like a light. Wherever you turn, you can know its truth. Be it a pebble, be it a human being, be it a mollusk, be it God, you just turn that light and you know its truth in essence. But beyond it, there is still greater, the source of intelligence, the pragya itself. That is what Sri Aurobindo is now established here. That is the supramental intelligence. Supramental intelligence is all comprehending together. The past, present, future, the entire thread it can see in unbroken continuity. It's the original intelligence which has gone into creation. That is the intelligence which has gone, which holds all these things together. But it needs minds and brains powerful enough to first embody it. Our mind doesn't have centers even for rational intelligence. The intuitive intelligence, because it's acting on a material basis. That's why if you experience it by going out of the body, you can experience something, a glimpse, but you can't express it because there are no centers in the mind to hold it. The moment it acts upon the mind, one has a booming headache. Mother speaks about it because the mind cannot hold it. That's what Yagnaval tells Gargi, that Gargi, one more word and your head will split into 1,000 parts. You can't receive that. So the minds must become strong and supple enough, the brain, to receive it, and then new centers to be formed through a process of evolution. When that happens in a transformed brain, then we'll be able to receive the supramental intelligence, and then we have what is called as the mind of light developing in an evolving humanity. And then subsequently when that happens, then the rest of the part begin to change. So what is the way to develop that mind? See, already thoda sleepiness hota hai na, just to hear about. So what is the way to develop this ability? Way is very simple. Read Sri Aurobindo. If you read Sri Aurobindo, new brain cells will develop to receive and hold the light. Okay? So then, this is one dimension, developing, freeing the intelligence. It becomes, at the level of intuition, it becomes a free universal intelligence. But that is not supramental intelligence. Supramental intelligence still further. Then what do we do with our mind right now? While we are liberating it to get the true knowledge, what do we do now? Know that there is a truth above. turn it, towards the source, to receive it. How will we receive it if there is a lot of chaos and noise going on? If we turn to God, imagine, people have this. Imagine we are meeting God. God has come, say, okay, I am going to answer you everything. He is all-knowing, omniscient. And we make him sit on a chair, do adar satkar, nariyal podna, whatever you want to do. He will be, I don't have much time, tell me. Either I can see your nariyal ceremony or you can ask me questions. So he says, sir, what is this corona? So God will say, just a vibration. No, sir, but the scientist in Harvard University is saying so. Still very patiently he will answer, my child, it is basically a vibration. But sir, I saw a WhatsApp message today. Do you understand the absurdity of it now? That's what sometimes I don't understand. I don't understand really. Today morning itself I was discussing. I said, after Sri Aurobindo and the mother have written with such clarity, where is the confusion? Where is the confusion? Either we say that they didn't know, that's okay. That, one has a right to say that and not have faith in. And they've written with clarity, it's a vibration which contains a material element, it contains a vibration of fear, thought, suggestion, bad will, and that constitutes a virus. What is there so complicated about it? Now imagine if God is sitting and we keep on having a debate, sir, then at the end we can ask him, sir, by the way, how many papers have you written on the subject? Have you read what this scientist has written, neuroscientist? Then God will say that, look here, I made that fellow. All the babbling, brilliant neurons that you see in his head, no, which he thinks proud about, which babble. I am the one who filled it with energy, who built the forms. Sir, you did it. Yes, by my executors. Nature. I have given this task to nature. Oh, sir, can I worship you? He says, I don't want that. Receive the truth. It's not about worshipping. Don't make a God sit in a chair and just worship with diyabatti and send him away. That's the most boring ceremony for any divine being. Mother's words, by the way, don't blame me for it. She says, do you think divine beings like this? Being worshipped when you tell, you are gay, great, you are wonderful. He says, I know. Who is moved by, who is impressed by saying you are great? Somebody who is not sure about himself. You tell a king, you are a king. So what will the king feel? Amused. Okay, you recognize me. Okay, fine. Come, go ahead. But, after a while, the king knows himself. He doesn't need to be told that you are a king. What does the king want? Okay, tell me what you want from me. I am the king, yes. What do you want? So that's how the mind, gets into a spin. The story of Hanuman with Rama. When he keeps on asking him questions and he takes the form of a Brahmin. And Rama also replies this, that, 100 things. So after some time he recognizes. He says, but you are my Lord. I have been, praying to you East for so many years. And he is overwhelmed with emotion. Then choked with emotion, he says, I am a monkey. I couldn't understand you. But you are God. You know me. Why didn't you tell me? He said, you never gave me an opportunity. You were so busy talking about yourself. So let the chatter cease. Then the mind, when it turns upward, it can receive. A mind is so full of chatter. So all the exercise in quietening. So what is the best way to make the mind quiet? Read Sri Aurobindo. You see, the mind will become quiet. Even the mind of a Bertrand Russell became quiet after reading The Life Divine. Yes, because after a while the mind falls into a luminous sleep. Initially. Later on you will enjoy it. Some people, I don't know. So, turn the mind upward to receive that light. Say that I don't know. Tell me what is. Once the mind receives it, then that knowledge can be used anywhere. But there is another practical aspect of it. Once you know there is a greater truth beyond, and while you are seeking it, what do you do when you have a problem? This mind receives that light and directs it wherever it wants to direct it. How does it do it? By the power of thought, by the power of awareness, and by the power of imagination. You receive it and direct it. You can use imagination. Some people say, but is this imagination? We'll talk about that in a while. But the mind is a mediated divinity. It receives. So what do we do practically when there is an illness? Let's say you have a pain somewhere. So what do you do? What does the mind do? Normally, the mind has these two movements. One, it concentrates on the pain and says, first thing, cancer to nahi hai. Sometimes when people think like that, I say, thoda simple bimari bhi soch lo. Seedha. It also shows a kind of vanity. I can't have ordinary illness, no? I must have something great. Great people have great illnesses. You can't have ordinary thing like a little lump on the, lipoma or something. You have to have something fantastic. So, what should the mind do? So, mind has these two movements. One is that it can bring a lot of fear. Other is it opens by faith, by aspiration to a light beyond and says, Ma, let your peace and light come here. So, what is the mind doing? When you put your attention, what is happening? How do you put your attention? Automatically, the mind can put attention on any part of your body. So it puts the attention there and keeps on invoking the light and the peace, light and the peace, light and the peace in a part which is painful. So if you do it, it will go away. It may take initially time if one has not practiced it. So every day practice it. Receiving and invoking and letting the whole body bathe in that beautiful peace and light. So the role of mind is one is it should free itself, become a universal intelligence, but that's an evolutionary process. But much before that, it can mediate between the divine and the human body. Meaning thereby, depending on how your mind believes in things, you are already conditioning your body towards that. So if you believe that this is an incurable illness and the moment I have it, I am going to die. So what is the body? Body is poor fellow receiving a message from the mind. You will die, you will die, you will die. Why? Because your report says so. And it will start behaving like that. All its operating systems are controlled by the mind. So that's why watch over the thoughts. Watch over the thoughts. That is our job, not the doctor's job. It's also the doctor's job. Some of them put so much fear, especially when I see people moving in all those PPE kits and all that. It's so frightening. It looks like a new version of Yamdut. I mean, they are good guys. I'm myself a doctor. But you suddenly feel ki what is happening? And he will not take off the mask. And the patient is also in mask. So you can't hear anything. I don't know how they really hear each other. Have you ever wondered? I can't hear anybody who is in mask. So I tell them, please, if you want to tell your problems, please at least lower it. Then they lower it and they speak. And with all that, so we have to understand what patients need. Many of them smile of a doctor. Now with the mask you can't smile also. Unless you say take out your phone and send a smiley. This is what I am doing right now. So mind is a mediated divinity. If we want to conquer life, if we want to master things within the body, master the mind. The thoughts, the feelings, the impulses that arise. If you master it, to that extent we can master things within the body and open it to a greater source of light and channel it. Mind is just a channel. That's how hypnosis works. In a state of hypnosis, what happens? The mind suspends its rational judgment. Have you ever seen a hypnotic seance? Okay. So in a hypnotic seance, you tell a person, and a person has gone into hypnosis. You give the most awkward posture that you can imagine. Lift your right hand. How long can you lift it? Try it. In a hypnotic seance, half an hour the person will keep it lifted. You make the person stand on the most awkward of postures. One will stand. Because the mind is suspended its judgment. Meaning thereby, the mind has certain fixed ideas, conditioned things. It is freed from that conditioning for a moment. And therefore you can do things which ordinarily you cannot do. Because the mind has suddenly become unconditioned. Why? Because it's not a good thing, by the way, hypnosis. At that moment, the mind has suspended its will and give it in charge to somebody else. So that's why it's not a good thing. But it shows a possibility. So the person now, his will operates you. Can you imagine what it means? You become like an automaton. I have seen people suffer from serious illness, even death. And I had cautioned the person who had it. He made me meet some hypnotist, he is a great hypnotist and all that. So I heard and I saw him. No, he wants to take an interview of yours. I said, I don't think, I'm very busy and all that. This hypnotist had started doing certain things with this man. Then within a year, he developed a serious illness and died. So stay away from that. But the point is conveyed. Now imagine if a human will takes charge of your will, and you can do things which you normally cannot do. What can the divine will do? What is impossible for the divine will? So that's why give charge of our mind, thoughts, feelings, will. When it is said, give it to the divine, it's for our good. Divine is, it won't make a difference to the divine, but it is for our good. So he will take charge, and then there will be nothing like an impossible. A prayer, a master act, a king idea can link man's strength to the transcendence force. Then miracle is made the common role. A lonely thought can change. A lonely thought becomes omnipotent. Namaste.